Hi everybody. This is one of the 7 articles that we're going to be looking at as I stated in the beginning of class. You should take this on your own. If any of these interest you, please look at the article, listen to my lecture material for it. We're going to be looking at some of the work on Scribner, who I think is one of the more prolific educational organizational authors that you're going to come across. Why did I pick this article? I picked this article just because of my time in Oklahoma so far, where people have really talked about professional learning communities. I've heard that term so much more here than I ever did in Pennsylvania. And I think it's important that I find you an article that takes organizational theory and connects it to professional learning communities. It's a good parallel. This is one of the works that really took an existing concept that had been determined long ago, but then took it and put it in a new perspective, which beneficially for all of you that are thinking of doing research, if you can do this, this helps you advance. So find a way to take an existing concept related to a new perspective, and it can help you advance your studies and your work as well. So Jace Scribner is a full professor at Old Dominion University in Virginia. Why I think he is interesting is the fact that he looked at professional communities in education and in business. He was cross-disciplined. So he had a venue to show school improvement from a business perspective, which if you've got anything from getting to know me so far, I love the fact when somebody is able to take another subject area, really tie it in and use it to better them and to better understand how to improve another facet of workplace learning. So if you can take business practices and apply them to education, if you can take sociology practices and apply them to education, it's going to give you a little more weight than taking educational practices and apply them to education. And I'm begging all of you in your research to try to think of ways to do this, understand this, and for it to stand out for you. So we've seen school improvement and how school improvement brings people together and fosters professional communities. That's common in research. But we've also talked too about what happens to support and impede professional communities as well. Why this matters is the fact that this article looked at it from an organizational learning perspective, and not a lot of other articles did. So this is a good seminal work. If you're doing professional learning communities, you really need to consider reading this article and looking at some of the work that Scribner did in the late 90s, early 2000s. So what is organizational learning? Well, in theory, organizational learning is when people in the organization come together and they can understand what's going wrong. So first, they have to say, here are the problems. They detect the errors. Once you've detected an error, you correct the error. Then after you've been able to do that, it should show you, well, this is the process that I did to get from point A to point B. I've used this to improve learning, to improve how our organization runs, and it helps me to gain new insight and knowledge on the organization. You can use feedback from historical events, meaning this worked in the past, this didn't work in the past, I'm going to try it again, I'm not going to try it again. And you have to gather information from all stakeholders. One of the things that I'm trying to get everybody to think about more when you're thinking about your organization as a whole is the fact that if you start to think about how work is done in business, where you actually do 360-degree evaluations, when you talk to the people that are above you, that are below you, you talk to the community members, you talk to the customers, you improve the organization's just operationally, you improve job satisfaction, and you improve their profitability as well. Profitability in schools is based on what a student is able to learn. You can do that as well if you can gather information from all different dimensions. So we do this through single loop learning and double loop learning. Double loop learning basically shows us that schools are complex, organizations are complex, but schools are even more complex because you have many different factors. You have human factors influencing schools. You have people's emotions. You have working with people that are minors, working with adults who are influential over what minors are doing. you have to take new learning and merge it with existing organizational knowledge, or replace that prior knowledge entirety in its entirety in order to better improve what can be done in schools. So when you think about professional communities, what do they look like? Karen C. Shore-Lewis and Sharon Cruz really wrote on what does professional community look like in '96. This is another seminal work where if I'm working with you in the future, if you are not quoting and using Sharon Cruz, it is going to upset me greatly, because this is one of the biggest and most important things over the last 20 years when we're looking at professional community. Basically, if we have a professional community, there are shared beliefs. Whether people agree with them or not, at least they share what they look like. We have intellectual growth. We have reflective dialogue. We have interaction and feedback from colleagues so that people aren't just doing something on their own and they're not sharing it. Big problem in schools is this notion that, you know, when the door opens and the classroom door closes, it's my classroom and I'm not going to help anybody else improve. As administrators and as leaders, find a way to get past this with your teachers. It goes back to this whole entire concept that the teachers in general kind of have this sense of entitlement, like I should do things my way, when if they're doing a good thing and they're sharing it with others, it can benefit everybody else. Same deal, collaboration. Teachers need to work together, they need to be, you know, on the same page, and that can help them with their practice as well. So what do you need to know about this? This was a case study. There were 3 middle schools that had a similar structure. There was little variability between the schools, which helped. There was low student to teacher ratio, and there was geographic isolation as well. That's good. There were 27 schools in the sample, but they found 3 that were similar to each other, talked to teachers, talked to administrators, talked to different stakeholders, and they collected data over a longitudinal period of time. Anything over a year is going to be much better than a brief snapshot, I can tell you that for sure. So there was a method, a framework, and 3 cases. So the framework was basically would fit from the results of it, and everything was kind of synthesized together, which I think is good. What I like is the fact that this paper shows you each of the cases in breaks, but it also gives you a way to focus on the framework as well. That way you can see the framework and you can see how it pertains to each of the schools as organizations, but you can also see them individually as well. Great methodological way to write a case study, because you're critiquing the framework and you're critiquing how a particular organization met the framework, but you're also isolating them as well. So, of the results, when different views are presented and they're permitted on teaching, learning, and change, more leadership opportunities occur and more participation in leadership team is possible. Teachers need to be given autonomy, they have to be allowed to change, and when that occurs, that can be a good thing as well. If teacher work isn't organized appropriately, that is a massive problem as well. If the process is impeded and teacher work isn't clear and it's not open and upfront and the administrators don't know what the teachers are doing, you can't exactly improve student learning throughout the entire school as an organization, because you don't know what one teacher is doing that is good and you don't know what one teacher is doing that is bad. It took time to look at what a professional learning community looked like and how that can improve schools. Getting to know your culture, getting to know the organization is important, but you have to use this as a way to gain towards school improvement as well. So one of the things that I think you need to understand, if you're going to do work on professional learning communities and you want your work to sustain, I'm begging you to look at it longitudinally. You can't just do a brief snapshot of a professional learning community, because you have to see what the process was, what the end product was, how did this improve practice, how did this improve student learning, did the teachers do a better job being engaged in it their first year versus their second year. Organizational learning foundations will help you better understand it and better show you what it looks like and how it's presented. So that's really it for this article. I think this is more of a procedural thing than anything else, but if you're interested in professional learning communities, it's something that I strongly hope that you'll consider. Thank you very much.